Hello, and welcome to my series on book reviews. This time I'm going to be talking about one of the most fun fantasy books I've read in some time. It's called Kings of the Wyld by Nicholas Eames. When I first heard about the idea for Kings of the Wyld in an author interview, my first reaction was like, why didn't I think of this idea myself? The author takes two of my favorite things, music, especially rock music, and books, and he puts them two together and in a very wonderful way. And I'll talk about this more in the premise. The structure for this review will be loosely something like this. I will talk about the premise first, what the book is about, mostly from no spoilers, mostly what's on the back of the cover of the book. And then I'll talk about some things that I like, some things that I don't like, and the final verdict and whether or not I recommend this book. So, the premise for this book, like I said, the author takes music and the band setting and the whole classic rock scene and puts it in a Monster Hunter book where monster hunting is this glorified profession like bands of yesteryear's war, and people came together and formed troops or groups or bands to go out and hunt monsters like they do tours in the music world. So that's the premise of the book. That's the idea of the book. The story starts with Clay Cooper, this ex legendary band member from the band called Saga, who's now retired, and he's done with his monster hunting days, and he's settled into a nice family in a small town, and he is met by his old bandmate who wants to revive the band for one last quest to save the bandmate's daughter. The story seems like a simple one, and the premise seems like a simple one, uh, but the execution is just brilliant. It's the tone is very light and humorous. It's not a very heavy book. It'll keep you smiling throughout the book, and it's so action paced and so punchy. It doesn't let down from the start of the book, and that's one of the things I love about this book. I really like the all the music references. The lead character's nickname is Lowhand, which is Eric Clapton's guitar's name. The other bandmate is Gabriel, who's named after Peter Gabriel, a guitarist. There is a scene in a bar fight, which I think is homage to a fight between Metallica and Guns N' Roses. At least that's what I think. I haven't verified this anywhere. But there's tons of stuff like this. I haven't found them all, but I'm sure there's a Reddit page somewhere which lists all the music references, and I really like that. So if you're a music fan, then definitely this is a book to check out. Other things to like about this book is even though it's light and humorous, the prose is not sloppy at all. It's actually written quite well. I really like the descriptions and the way author weaves in and out of beautiful prose and makes it into action scenes and some fun light humor. All the transitions are very smooth, and overall it's done very well. Another thing that I really like was the characters and the character work and the character voices. We hear the whole book from Clay Cooper's point of view, who's one of the bandmates, the main guy. But you still get the distinct voices from the other band members and all of the other side characters. There are some really nice side characters as well, and I think the aim that the author wanted to achieve, where he wanted to portray each member of the monster hunting group as classic members of classic bands. I think he really put them through. You have the rogue drummer, you have the hot-headed guitarist, you have the charismatic frontman who does all the talking. You have the very reliable bass player who's just in the background, but does all the brings the band together, and you have the keyboard player or the magician in the book who pulls out all the tricks, and all of them have really been portrayed well, and their characteristics come off very distinctly in the book. The book is far from perfect though. One of the major problems that I had with this book, especially in the beginning, is the amount of exposition that it has. And I was actually surprised that a published book had so much info dump in the beginning of the book where just start the scene. And generally when someone teaches you writing books, they tell you, oh, you need to hide all the exposition in dialogue, or in some form of like one character, one mentor teaching a student or something like that. People do cool stuff, but in this case you just enter a scene and it's just like a history lesson of all the things that you should need to know about that place, or something that happened in the past or whatever, and then you jump into the scene. And I was really shocked to see so much exposition. It gets better in the later parts of the book. I especially remember towards the end, there is a story that one of the characters tells the band, through which you learn a lot of history, and that exposition is covered well. But in the beginning, just feel like, oh, this is too much information. That's the biggest complaint. Otherwise, the only other thing that I wasn't thrilled with was the ending was a little bit generic, and some of the jokes were kind of bland and brutish. But I mean, for the most part, it was brilliantly executed, and I'm just nitpicking here. Overall, I think it's a fantastic book. It was, like I said, it was really fun to read. It was really fast. I finished it in like a week or something. It's not terribly big. If fantasy intimidates you because you'll be bogged down by so much details, you won't. Even the exposition, even though exposition is there, it just flies by. And I think the author achieved what he wanted to achieve in the book. And whatever tiny nitpicks are there, I'm sure he fixed them in the further novels. And there are sequels, although I think this book is standalone, and then the next book is set in the same world, by populated by some of the characters that we've seen in this book. So I'm very excited to read the second book. So if you have any other books that you want to read and want me to review, or if you have read and want me to just talk about them so we can share opinions, do let me know in the comment section down below. And as usual, like, share, and subscribe.